Don't ever touch me.
Sorry.
What's the name of the show?
Sorry, Alf.
Man!
Rip his ear off.
5, 4.
If you're gonna touch me down here.
Behind the laughter and furry charm of everyone's favorite cat-eating alien lurked a production nightmare of epic proportions, from puppet-induced meltdowns to dangerous imitation incidents that forced script rewrites. What seemed like harmless family fun masked one of television's most dysfunctional sets, where actors battled puppets, kids mimicked deadly stunts, and a writer's drug addiction literally influenced episodes. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about ALF. Fact 1. A child microwaved their cat after watching ALF.
Let's have a snack now. We'll get friendly later.
Snack? What kind of a snack?
You got a cat?
You eat cats?
One of the most disturbing incidents connected to the ALF television series occurred when NBC reported that a young viewer had placed their family cat in a microwave and killed it after watching the show. The child was attempting to imitate ALF's constant obsession with eating cats, which was a recurring joke throughout the series. On his home planet of Melmac, cats were considered a delicacy and were raised like cattle, so ALF frequently tried to catch and eat the Tanner family's cat, named Lucky. While this seemed like harmless comedy to adult viewers, young children watching the show began copying ALF's behavior in dangerous ways. Creator and voice actor Paul Fusco later admitted the devastating impact these imitation incidents had on the production. Kids were duplicating what ALF was doing, Fusco told Mental Floss magazine. It was kind of sad in a way. Some kid put his cat in a microwave because ALF tried to do that once. We had to be real careful. The network became increasingly concerned about the furry alien's influence on impressionable young viewers, especially since ALF had become wildly popular with children despite originally being conceived as a show with broader adult appeal. This tragic incident forced the show's writers and producers to completely rethink their approach to the cat-eating storyline. The jokes about ALF consuming cats were significantly toned down, and by the end of the first season, references to ALF eating pets became much less frequent. Eventually, the show even had ALF develop genuine affection for cats, transforming from a predator into a cat lover as the series progressed. NBC executives specifically told Fusco that ALF needed to be a better role model since children were watching, which meant eliminating many of the edgier jokes that had defined the character's personality during the early episodes. Fact 2. Max Wright physically attacked the ALF puppet.
It was an accident.
An accident? You almost killed me, and you say it was an accident?
The tension on the ALF set reached a shocking breaking point during the 4th season when lead actor Max Wright became so frustrated that he physically attacked the ALF puppet in a violent outburst. According to reports from people who worked on the show, Wright became completely crazed during filming and grabbed the puppet while screaming, "Put us all on sticks, we're all puppets," at the top of his lungs. The incident became so intense that producers had to physically intervene and pull Wright off the puppet to stop the attack. This bizarre moment perfectly captured just how miserable the working conditions had become for the human actors on the set. Max Wright was a classically trained theater actor who had built his career performing Shakespeare and serious dramatic works before landing the role of Willie Tanner on ALF. The transition from prestigious stage work to playing second fiddle to an inanimate puppet proved incredibly difficult for Wright, who openly despised the technical demands of working with the ALF character. He later described his time on the show as hard work and very grim, admitting that he was hugely eager to have it over with by the time production ended. The puppet always received the best lines and all the attention, while Wright was relegated to being the straight man who reacted to ALF's antics. The story of Wright's violent outburst was later confirmed by comedian Artie Lange, who worked with Wright years later on The Norm Show. Lange recalled Wright telling him about the incident, describing how the frustration of working with a puppet for hours on end while standing over dangerous trapdoors finally caused him to snap. This wasn't just a moment of mild frustration, but a complete mental breakdown that revealed the depth of Wright's unhappiness during his 4 years on the series. Fact 3. The set was a dangerous trapdoor minefield.
Hey, great! Now we've got a furnished basement!
The ALF soundstage was unlike any other television set in Hollywood, featuring a unique and potentially dangerous construction that made filming a constant safety hazard for everyone involved. The entire set was built on a raised platform that stood 4 feet above the ground, and the floor was riddled with dozens of trapdoors positioned at strategic points throughout the Tanner family's living room and kitchen. This unusual design was necessary because Paul Fusco, the puppeteer who operated ALF, needed to work from underneath the set to make the alien appear anywhere in the scene. However, this meant that the floor was essentially full of deep, gaping holes that actors had to carefully avoid while delivering their lines and moving around the set. The trapdoors were described by crew members as deep and treacherous, creating a genuine risk of serious injury if someone accidentally stepped into an open hole during filming. The doors had to be constantly opened and closed depending on where ALF needed to appear in each shot, and they frequently required resetting multiple times even during a single scene. This meant that actors not only had to remember their dialogue and blocking, but also had to mentally map out where the dangerous openings were located at any given moment to avoid falling through the floor. The technical crew worked frantically between takes to reposition the trapdoors, but the sheer number of openings made it nearly impossible to create a completely safe working environment. Cast members had to navigate this minefield while trying to maintain the illusion that they were simply acting in a normal suburban home, which added yet another layer of difficulty to an already challenging production. The constant threat of injury from the trapdoor system became just one more reason why the human actors found working on ALF to be such a physically and mentally exhausting experience. Fact 4. Episodes took 25 hours to film.
Now look, I know things haven't worked out exactly as planned, but when you have a lemon, you make lemonade.
What lemon? What are you talking about?
Filming a single 30-minute episode of ALF required an exhausting 20 to 25 hours of continuous shooting, which was drastically longer than the typical sitcom production schedule of the time. Most family comedies in the 1980s could complete an episode in just a few hours, but the technical complexity of operating the ALF puppet made every scene an incredibly slow and painstaking process. Anne Schedeen, who played Mother Kate Tanner, described the experience as a technical nightmare in interviews years after the show ended. She explained that if you had a scene with ALF in it, the filming process took centuries compared to scenes that only featured the human actors, and she noted that what should have been a quick 30-minute show ended up taking an entire day or more to complete. The extended filming schedule was caused by the elaborate puppeteering setup required to bring ALF to life on screen. Paul Fusco had to operate the puppet from beneath the raised platform while coordinating with 2 other puppeteers who controlled different parts of ALF's body, and a 4th person managed the facial expressions and ear movements using a remote control device from off-camera. Every movement had to be precisely choreographed and timed, which meant that even simple scenes required multiple takes to get everything synchronized correctly. The trapdoors in the floor needed constant adjustments between shots, and the entire crew had to wait while technicians repositioned the openings for each new camera angle. The brutal shooting schedule left everyone involved completely drained by the end of each session. Schedeen later revealed that there was absolutely no joy on the set because of how hot, slow, and tedious the filming process had become, with the technical demands of the puppet completely dominating every aspect of production and making life miserable for the human cast members. Fact 5. Electric mixer scene. Nearly killed a child.
Now, we had a lot of laughs tonight, but there's nothing funny about electrical appliances in the bathtub. It's very dangerous. and can get hurt badly.
A particularly dangerous scene in the season, one episode titled Try to Remember, led to a near-fatal incident when a young viewer attempted to recreate what they saw ALF doing on television. In the original version of the episode, which first aired on February 9, 1987, ALF decided to turn the bathtub into a homemade jacuzzi by bringing Kate's electric mixer into the water with him. The scene showed Alf receiving a massive electrical shock from mixing water and electricity, which caused him to develop amnesia and drove the plot of the entire episode. Paul Fusco even filmed a public service announcement featuring Alf himself at the end of the episode, warning viewers about the serious dangers of combining water and electrical appliances. Despite this safety warning, NBC received reports that a child had watched the episode and tried to recreate the bathtub scene at home, nearly electrocuting themselves in the process. Fortunately, the child survived without serious injury, but the incident was alarming enough that the network demanded immediate action from the show's producers. Fusco and his team were forced to completely reshoot the opening sequence of the episode, removing all references to the electric mixer and replacing it with a manual egg beater instead. In the revised version, ALF's amnesia was caused by a different accident altogether, where he simply slipped in the shower and suffered a cranial concussion, with viewers hearing only a scream and a loud thud, rather than the sound of electrocution. The refilmed version became the standard cut, used in all subsequent broadcasts and syndication packages, effectively erasing the dangerous electric mixer scene from television history. This incident demonstrated once again how seriously young children were taking ALF's behavior and attempting to imitate his actions without understanding the real-world consequences. Fact 6. There was a rehearsal puppet named Ralph.
Alf's asleep. You're talking to me.
The production team behind ALF created a second, much cruder version of the puppet, specifically for rehearsals, and they gave it the clever nickname Ralph, which stood for Rehearsal Alien Life Form. This battered and worn-out duplicate puppet was used exclusively during practice sessions and blocking rehearsals to protect the principal ALF puppet from unnecessary damage and deterioration. The main puppet used for actual filming was an expensive and delicate piece of equipment that required careful maintenance to keep it looking fresh and camera-ready throughout the show's 4-year run, so the production couldn't afford to have it suffer wear and tear during the countless hours of rehearsal time. Paul Fusco reportedly didn't enjoy rehearsing very much, and he would often substitute either Ralph or even just his bare hand for the real ALF puppet during practice sessions with the actors. The ALF puppet was noticeably rougher in appearance compared to the polished version viewers saw on television, but it served its purpose by allowing the cast and crew to work through scenes without putting stress on the primary puppet. According to crew members who worked on the show, Ralph had a single on-screen appearance during Season 3 in an episode called Alone Again, Naturally, where the puppet briefly appeared visible inside a car during one scene. Paul Fusco confirmed in later interviews that the RALF puppet still exists today, preserved as a piece of television history alongside the main ALF puppet. The creation of Ralph demonstrated just how technically demanding and costly the production of ALF really was, since even a simple rehearsal required a completely separate puppet to avoid damaging the valuable main character that audiences had grown to love. Fact 7. A heroin-addicted writer's hallucinations became episodes.
Fire department? Well, I need you to come out here. There's a giant cockroach trying to kill me.
One of the most disturbing behind-the-scenes secrets of ALF involved writer Jerry Stahl, who was battling a severe heroin addiction while working on the show and apparently channeled his drug-induced experiences directly into the scripts he wrote. Stahl was a television writer who had worked on several major 1980s shows, including Moonlighting and 30-something, but his time on ALF coincided with the worst period of his substance abuse problem. His addiction was so serious that it literally influenced the content of the episodes he created, with his hallucinations and drug experiences becoming plot points in the family-friendly sitcom. The most obvious example of this was the Season 1 episode titled La Cucaracha, which Stahl wrote and which featured a bizarre storyline about a giant cockroach crawling out of a bag of food from ALF's spaceship. In an oral history of the show, one of the other writers noted that the inspiration for this surreal episode was pretty obvious to everyone on the writing staff, saying, "We can figure out where that one came from," in reference to Stahl's well-known drug problems. The giant insect hallucination was a clear sign that Stahl's heroin use was affecting his creative work in strange and uncomfortable ways. Stahl eventually got help for his addiction and went on to write a memoir called Permanent Midnight about his experiences as a successful Hollywood writer struggling with substance abuse. The book was later adapted into a 1998 film starring Ben Stiller, and in one scene, Stiller's character hallucinates that the alien puppet from the show he writes for is beating down his bedroom door. The production couldn't legally call the show ALF in the movie, but the connection was unmistakable to anyone familiar with Stahl's career. Fact 8. ALF was the first TV show in Dolby Surround Sound.
Why are we moving out of a house we do like so you can keep a job you don't like?
I don't know.
ALF made television history by becoming the very first series ever to be broadcast in Dolby Surround Sound when it premiered on NBC in September of 1986. This was a groundbreaking technological achievement that forever changed how audiences experienced television audio in their homes. Before ALF arrived on the airwaves, every single television program in the United States was broadcast using either basic mono sound, which came from a single audio channel, or simple two-channel stereo sound that separated audio between left and right speakers. The introduction of Dolby Surround on a weekly sitcom was a major leap forward in home entertainment technology. Dolby Surround Sound technology allowed viewers with the proper audio equipment to experience a much more immersive sound environment, complete with full subwoofer support that added deep bass tones to the viewing experience. This meant that people who had invested in home theater systems could suddenly enjoy their favorite alien sitcom with the kind of audio quality that was previously only available in movie theaters. The technology created a wraparound sound effect that made viewers feel like they were actually in the Tanner family's living room with ALF, adding an extra layer of entertainment value to the show. The decision to make ALF the testing ground for this new broadcast technology was somewhat surprising, given that it was just a family comedy about a puppet alien. But it proved to be an effective way to introduce the general public to Dolby Surround capabilities. From that point forward, the use of surround sound in television broadcasting continued to grow and evolve, eventually leading to the multi-channel complete surround sound systems that are standard in modern television production, making ALF a true pioneer in broadcast audio history. Fact 9. The German voice actor became a pop star.
This is my prison for the night.
It's not a prison. It's our bedroom.
One man's bedroom is another man's prison.
As ALF became massively popular in Germany when the show began airing there in 1988. And the phenomenon took an unexpected turn when Tommy Piper, the German voice actor who dubbed ALF's dialogue, launched a full-fledged music career performing as the character. Between 1988 and 1991, Piper recorded 2 complete albums and released 4 hit singles while performing in character as ALF, with one of his songs even spending 12 weeks on the German pop charts. This was a remarkable achievement that had no equivalent in the United States, where ALF never became a recording artist beyond a few promotional tracks. The most bizarre song in Piper's ALF discography was titled ALF wird unser Bundeskanzler, which translates into English as ALF will be our Chancellor. The song was essentially a novelty rap track that promoted the idea of the furry alien puppet running for the highest political office in Germany, complete with chanting crowds and instrumental passages that some listeners found oddly intense for a children's record. The first album, released in 1989 entitled Alles Paradiso, opened with this political anthem and featured Piper's voice performing in a much deeper baritone register than Paul Fusco's original English voice for the character. The second album, called Jetzt sing ich, or Now I Sing, in English, came out in 1991 and included ALF's versions of popular songs from that era, showing just how seriously German audiences took the character. What makes this entire musical career even more unusual is that Paul Fusco was famously secretive about ALF's puppet nature and rarely allowed anyone associated with the character to be publicly credited. Yet Piper's name and photo appeared on the album covers in Germany. Fact 10. Max Wright walked off set without saying goodbye.
Big mistake.
The final night of filming for ALF ended with a moment that perfectly captured just how much lead actor Max Wright had grown to despise his time on the show. According to his co-star, Anne Sheedine, when the director called cut on the very last take of the series finale, Wright didn't participate in any of the typical end-of-show festivities or emotional farewells that usually mark the completion of a long-running television series. Instead, he simply turned around, walked directly to his dressing room, gathered all of his personal belongings, carried them straight to his car in the parking lot, and drove away from the studio without saying a single word of goodbye to any of his castmates or crew members who had worked alongside him for 4 years. Sheedine recounted the incident in interviews, noting that there was just one take of the final scene, and then Max was gone before anyone even realized what was happening. The abrupt departure was shocking to everyone on set, but it wasn't entirely surprising given how vocal Wright had been about his unhappiness throughout the production. He had openly admitted to being hugely eager to have it over with, and described his experience on the show as hard work and very grim in conversations with journalists and fellow actors. Wright's silent exit spoke volumes about the toll that working on ALF had taken on him, both professionally and personally. For a classically trained theater actor who had devoted his career to serious dramatic work, spending 4 years playing straight man to a puppet that always got the best lines and all the attention had been a deeply frustrating experience. His wordless departure became one of the most memorable behind-the-scenes stories from the show, symbolizing the deep dysfunction that had plagued the production from beginning to end. Fact 11. A 2'9" circus performer wore the full-body costume.
Is this enough?
Sure. In some states, I can still make a phone call.
Whenever ALF needed to be shown walking, running, or standing in full view on the television screen, the production relied on a Hungarian circus performer named Michu Meszaros, who wore a complete ALF costume to bring the character to life. Meszaros stood only 2 feet 9 inches tall and weighed just 25 pounds, making him one of the few people in the world small enough to fit inside the furry alien suit. Before joining the show, Meszaros had performed with the prestigious Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, where he was billed as the smallest man on Earth and had even performed for Presidents Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan during his career. The full-body ALF costume allowed the production to show the alien in ways that the puppet could never achieve, such as the opening credit sequence where ALF walks over to join the Tanner family for a group photograph. However, the costume presented serious problems that made it impractical for regular use throughout the series. The suit was extremely hot and uncomfortable to wear for extended periods, especially under the intense heat of the studio lights that were necessary for filming. The costume was also so bulky and restrictive that Meszaros had difficulty seeing and moving around safely on set, which created additional challenges for the production team. Because of these limitations, the full-body costume was completely abandoned after the first season, and the show relied exclusively on the puppet version of ALF for all subsequent episodes. Meseros was never credited for his work on the show during its original run, which was part of Paul Fusco's effort to maintain the illusion that ALF was a real alien, rather than a combination of puppetry and costume work performed by multiple people behind the scenes. Fact 12. The series ended on an accidental cliffhanger.
Well, I had to break in the back door after I fell out the window.
Where are you now? What are you doing?
I'm in the bedroom wearing a blue dress.
The final episode of ALF, which aired on March 24, 1990, was never intended to be the actual series finale, and it left millions of viewers with a shocking cliffhanger that wouldn't be resolved for 6 long years. NBC executives had given Paul Fusco and the production team a verbal commitment that the show would be renewed for a 5th season, so the writers crafted the season 4 finale as the first part of a 2-part story that would continue when the show returned in the fall. The episode ended with ALF being captured by the United States military's alien task force just as he was about to escape Earth and reunite with his fellow Melmatians, and the screen displayed the words, "To be continued," before cutting to black. However, NBC suddenly reversed its decision and canceled the show permanently, leaving fans completely devastated and confused about what happened to their beloved alien character. The network had changed regulations regarding network-owned programming, which meant they could now develop their own shows instead of licensing content from outside production companies, making ALF expendable despite its loyal audience. The show's traditional Monday night time slot was given to a new series called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and ALF disappeared from the airwaves with no resolution to the cliffhanger ending. Paul Fusco had envisioned the 5th season taking place with Alf trapped at a military base, where he would become the new Sergeant Bilko and drive everyone crazy with his antics. NBC executive Brandon Tartikoff later admitted to Fusco that canceling the show was a mistake and that it deserved at least 1 or 2 more seasons. Fans finally received closure in 1996 when ABC aired a television movie called Project ALF that resolved the cliffhanger and showed ALF escaping captivity. Fact 13. Paul Fusco insisted ALF was really an alien creator.
Alf, what are you doing in my dress?
Sorry, I thought it was Lynn's.
Paul Fusco was extraordinarily protective of the illusion that ALF was a genuine extraterrestrial being, and he went to extreme lengths throughout the show's run to prevent anyone from discovering that the character was actually a puppet operated by a human being. During the entire production of the series, Fusco adamantly refused to acknowledge that ALF was anything other than a real alien visitor from the planet Melmac, and he warned everyone involved with the show never to reveal any of the production secrets or technical details about how the character was brought to life on screen. This obsessive commitment to maintaining the illusion led Fusco to turn down several major television appearances that would have given ALF enormous exposure and publicity. NBC wanted ALF to host Saturday Night Live, which would have been a huge promotional opportunity for the show, but Fusco declined because the live studio audience would inevitably see him operating the puppet from below the stage or behind the scenes. He also refused offers to appear on Late Night with David Letterman and even turned down a chance to be part of a Muppets television special, all because these appearances would require revealing the mechanics of how ALF actually worked to the people watching in the studio. Fusco explained his reasoning by comparing the situation to preserving the magic of childhood beliefs, saying it was similar to how adults don't discuss whether Santa Claus is real because nobody wants to burst a child's bubble of wonder and imagination. He received letters from young fans saying things like, "My dad says you're not real, but I know you are." And those messages reinforced his determination to protect the fantasy for children who wanted to believe that ALF truly existed as a living, breathing alien from outer space. Fact 14. Andrea Elson developed bulimia.
Do I think we should let an alien from outer space watch Psycho while our son sleeps in the other room?
Hey, no problem. Just leave me the keys to the liquor cabinet.
During Season 2, the toxic working environment on the ALF set took a serious toll on the mental and physical health of the cast members, including actress Andrea Elson, who played teenage daughter Lynn Tanner throughout the show's 4-year run. Elson developed bulimia, a serious eating disorder, during the second season of production, and she later revealed that the stressful conditions on set made her condition significantly worse. In interviews conducted years after the show ended, Elson opened up about her struggles and admitted that the experience of playing second fiddle to a puppet contributed to the deterioration of her mental health during that difficult period. The constant pressure of working on a show where the human actors were treated as supporting players to an inanimate object created an atmosphere of frustration and low morale that affected everyone differently. For Elson, who was still a young actress trying to establish her career, the feeling of being secondary to a puppet character was particularly damaging to her self-esteem and sense of professional worth. She watched as ALF received all the attention, the best dialogue, and the spotlight in every scene, while the human cast members were expected to simply react and provide straight-man responses to the aliens' jokes and antics. The grueling production schedule and the general unhappiness on set only compounded Elson's personal struggles with her eating disorder. In a particularly revealing comment, she stated that if ALF had continued for even one more season beyond its 4-year run, everybody would have lost. It, suggesting that the entire cast was on the verge of complete emotional and mental breakdown by the time the show finally ended. Her experience highlighted how the demanding nature of working with the puppet affected not just the professional lives, but also the personal well-being of everyone involved. Fact 15. ALF's beer drinking was banned. After Season 1. In the very first episode of ALF that aired in September of 1986, there's a scene showing the alien character drinking beer with young Brian Tanner, which seemed like an innocent enough joke at the time since ALF was supposed to be an adult alien who was over 200 years old. Creator Paul Fusco vigorously defended this creative choice when NBC executives initially questioned it, arguing that ALF was 285 years old according to the show's mythology, which made him more than old enough to consume alcohol legally. Fusco believed that the character should be treated as an adult who could make his own choices about drinking, and he saw nothing wrong with showing a centuries-old extraterrestrial enjoying a cold beer. However, as the first season progressed and ALF became an enormous hit with young children across America, NBC executives grew increasingly uncomfortable with the idea of a character that kids loved and wanted to imitate being shown drinking alcohol on screen. The network told Fusco directly that he couldn't have ALF drinking anymore because children were watching the show in huge numbers, and the alien had become a role model whether Fusco intended that or not. The executives insisted that showing ALF consuming beer sent the wrong message to impressionable young viewers who might think drinking was something fun and harmless that their favorite television character enjoyed. By the end of the first season, the alcohol consumption was completely eliminated from the show, with one notable exception in a later episode called Tequila, where ALF drinks with an alcoholic woman and helps inspire her to check into rehabilitation. The episode used ALF's drinking as a plot device to show the serious consequences of alcohol abuse, making him appear to be a hallucination that convinced the woman she needed professional help.